One of the most consistent patterns that we've seen throughout the entire Poppy Playtime story is the prototype's obsession with taking parts from other toys. Almost every time this thing shows up, someone ends up missing a limb, a torso, or just disappearing entirely into the darkness. And when you start lining up all of these moments together, it stops looking like random scavenging. It starts looking deliberate, because the very first time we ever see the prototype in the entire series, he's already doing this exact thing. Near the end of chapter 2, Mommy Longlegs has just been crushed inside of that grinder, screaming out that the prototype will make her part of him. And then after her supposed death, we see a metal hand reach out from the shadows behind her. Before we ever get a full look at who it belongs to, who we now know is the prototype, the hand grabs Mommy by the torso and drags her body away into the darkness. At the time, this moment mostly just felt like a creepy teaser for a villain we hadn't fully met yet. But looking back on it now, that scene might have been doing a lot more than just teasing the prototype. It was showing us exactly what he's been doing this entire time: collecting toy parts. Now fast forward to chapter 3 and we get something very similar happening again, only this time the prototype isn't just scavenging the remains of someone we defeated. He's the one doing the killing himself. At the end of the chapter, Catnap fails to stop us, and before we even have enough time to process what's happening, the prototype plunges his hand through Catnap's mouth and drags him away. Just like Mommy, another toy disappears, another body taken into the darkness. Hold on, this is not even in the script. Catnap was taken into the light. He wasn't taken into the darkness. I'm gonna leave that right there. But with that, we move into chapter 4. And interestingly enough, we don't actually see the prototype repurposing anyone directly during that chapter. At least not on screen. But if we go back to the one specific moment where Kissy stops us from falling deeper into the factory, during that struggle, her arm of course ends up getting torn off. And that arm falls right next to us when we fall neck first onto the rock going down into the factory. And at the time, it just felt like another brutal moment in the story. Another reminder that the factory is falling apart and that the toys are being pushed to their limits. We might even get the death of Kissy Missy is what we were thinking at the end of chapter 4, and look what they did in chapter 5 to Kissy Missy, bro. But then we get to chapter 5 and suddenly that moment becomes a lot more important, because when we finally get the full reveal of the prototype's body, we can clearly see several familiar parts attached to him. Mommy's arm, Kissy's arm, Huggy's arm, 3 different toys, 3 different moments, 3 different body parts now attached to the prototype, which immediately raises the obvious question: why, bro? Why is he doing this? What exactly is the prototype trying to accomplish by collecting parts from the other toys? Well, when it comes to Mommy Longlegs specifically, I actually want to reference something that I said in a previous video, specifically a video talking about what the prototype looks like. So I'm just gonna drop a quick clip from that video real quick. Just listen to this. What would the prototype take from Mommy Longlegs? The instinctive answer would be her arms and legs, as she's able to stretch them out several feet and they seem to be extremely strong as well. If you look closely at the Hour of Joy, you can see that multiple staff members were taken away by Mommy Longlegs with just 1 arm. So if the prototype were to take anything from her, it would definitely be that. I only got 3 words for y'all: on the money. And I ain't talking Mr. Krabs. Now, when I originally said that, it was mostly speculation based on what we'd seen at the time: the death of Mommy Longlegs, Catnap's shrine, and everything else surrounding around it. But now that we've actually seen the prototype's body in chapter 5, that idea starts to make a lot more sense, because Mommy Longlegs wasn't just strong, she was extremely versatile. She could stretch across massive distances. She could climb through the factory. She could trap enemies and control entire sections of the building. For some reason, the prototype can just walk on walls, so he might not need to extract anything regarding Mommy Longlegs in that skill, but everything else listed would be incredibly useful if the prototype was trying to make himself stronger. And it might not even stop at her arm, because during the train chase in chapter 5, when the prototype is chasing us down, we hear something very interesting. Just switch. Yup. Ooh, look at that. So I took too long. And then we heard Mommy Longlegs saying, "Come back to me." This dude is really Like we on the money. And not only that, we also get something similar with Doughy. Come on with the battery physics. I don't need you messing up with what the world? What the he voiced Doughy. So not only can we conclude that Mommy and Doughy's voice have just been taken, which makes a bit more sense on Mommy's side because she could possibly have a voice box. I don't know how he took a clay ball's voice. And what about Huggy? Because Huggy's situation might actually be the most confusing out of all of them. Unlike Mommy Longlegs, Huggy didn't die when we first encountered him. At the end of chapter 1, we send Huggy plummeting hundreds of feet into the depths of the factory. I've said it once, I'll say it again. Front of the face, back of the neck, left of the shoulder blade, and somehow he survives. Now we see him again later on, and he's clearly injured and missing one arm, and he has bandages and stitches all over his body, which really raises an interesting question, and it's a question that we've been trying to answer for a minute. Did the prototype patch Huggy up after that fall? Because if Huggy lost his arm sometime after chapter 1 and the prototype now has that arm attached to his body, then the prototype must have been involved in that process somehow. And we do get glimpses of this in the chapter 5 cinematic trailer with Huggy's hand and
guys, this dude is wrong. It's the teaser trailer.
Alongside blood. This did not look like a calm experiment, but this does create another problem. Wouldn't Huggy have been far more useful to the prototype if he still had both of his arms? Huggy is easily one of the strongest toys inside the factory. He's fast, he's aggressive, and he clearly knows how to hunt, doesn't know how to talk, but so why would the prototype intentionally leave him in a weakened state, especially when we, the player, have already proven to be extremely dangerous to the toys inside of the factory? Like, we have an entire title, TPB, the Playtime Butcher.
TPB.
One possible explanation is that Huggy's injuries were simply too severe to fully repair. After falling from that height and smashing into who knows how many beams and pipes on the way down, Huggy might have been beyond complete recovery. So instead of wasting resources trying to fix him completely, the prototype may have simply taken what was still useful, his arm, and left Huggy to operate in whatever state he was able to survive in. And in all honesty, Huggy might have needed that nerf because he was prying off a high clearance metal door that we went into from the end of chapter 4. And this could honestly just be a case of the prototype being the most effective rage baiter in Playtime Co. because you don't get a reaction like that with anybody. But then there's Kissy, and Kissy's case might actually be the simplest one. When Kissy's arm gets torn off while trying to save us, the prototype isn't even present in that scene, which means that by the time the prototype finds that arm later on, it's already been separated from her body. So in Kissy's case, this might have just simply been a finder's keeper situation. The arm was already gone, already detached, and the prototype decided to add it to his growing collection. Or is it possible that the prototype took note of the fact that Kissy had a weakened arm after his supposed altercation with her at the end of chapter 3, resulting in him knowing that her arm would likely be where it fell? But there is still one more character we have to talk about, Catnap. Because when Catnap is dragged away by the prototype at the end of chapter 3, we never actually see what happens to his body afterward. And some people believe, me, that the rib-like structure surrounding the prototype's body might belong to Catnap. Others think it could also actually be a part of Mommy Longlegs' torso, since the prototype dragged away her entire upper body at the end of chapter 2. But even if we eventually manage to identify every single part that the prototype has taken from the other toys, there is still one massive question left. Why is he even doing this in the first place? Most theories about this topic tend to revolve around one central idea. The prototype is trying to take the best attributes of every toy and combine them into himself. Mommy Longlegs' flexibility, Huggy and Kissy's strength and reach, Catnap's durability, and his stomach, red smoke. If that theory is true, then the prototype may be turning himself into the ultimate toy, a combination of one of the most powerful experiments that Playtime Co. has ever created. And by Playtime Co., I mean one man, One alcoholic after his, sorry, that's a stretch. But there is something about this whole explanation that feels slightly off to me. Because if the prototype was only interested in becoming stronger, then why stop at just arms and fragments of bodies? Why not take entire toys? Why not absorb everything he can? Instead, the prototype seems to be very selective about the parts he takes. Could this just be him trying to get the best combination of attributes? And if that's truly what's going on, who is he doing it for? Well, it doesn't seem like it's to kill us, especially when looking at everything we see in the Wrong Side Out song featuring the prototype. It seems like the prototype is just trying to establish his role as some almighty creator, capable of giving, taking, or even repurposing life. Sedating the toys with Catnap's smoke, grabbing toys with Mommy's arms, just flexing the fact that he got Huggy and Kissy's arms. Did I mention he took Catnap's stomach? But what do you guys think? Let me know down in the comments. Thanks for watching, subscribe, and click on this video right here.